The Three Down Greencast is brought to you by the Pile of Bones Brewing Company. Home delivery now available in Regina and Saskatoon at saskbeerdelivery.ca. Welcome to Three Down Greencast, a tolerated presentation of 3downnation.com. With myself, Joel Gasson, and John Fraser, as usual. We are physically distanced 261 kilometers apart.
You got
always
it,
have been, always will be, unless Grey Cup in Regina happens to be a thing this year.
It's true.
That's probably the only thing. It would be Grey Cup week, or perhaps a return of time. The CFL week might be the only time we may actually do this at one point in the same room. As even when you make your way down here for games or other occurrences, it never seems to work out that we actually record said program together.
No, the last time we tried to do it, I was way too hungover and without children, and you have a very comfy spare bed, and it was like, hey, it's noon, and I went to bed at midnight.
Yeah,
I got to get on the road.
Yeah, you had to get on the road, and you and your friend had to get back to said wives and children. So
that's true. And then the Saskatoon men's bonspiel. That's just that.
There's nothing to talk about then anyway, so it's fine.
No, it's true. Other than had we played Jorgen Hughes,
yes,
it would have been fun to ask him about curling and nothing about football. That would have been good. So again, if we run into any CFLers, especially with the Riders seemingly just picking every former Husky from Saskatchewan these days, maybe we will at curling bonspiel, and bam, there again we can do the thing.
Yeah, and we will get into the draft in a little bit, but I did feel like there was a bit, again, of a lack of scouting impact, a lack of ability to get on the road and look at guys and pro days and that whole thing that maybe influenced a closer to home pick early on.
Right. Which
is fair, not slamming them for it. I think it was a fair pick and it all made sense. So we will get into the draft a little bit, more so towards the end of the show, as we felt there was some more interesting topics that, frankly, we are more, I'm not going to say experts of, but things we can actually kind of talk about a little bit better. As there was maybe a time, John, where you knew a fair bit about the draft being involved, more so kind of in Husky football and Hilltop football. But, I mean, I've never been a self-proclaimed draft expert by any stretch of the imagination. Duncan Haji edit my draft pieces to make me look smarter than I am. I'm not afraid to admit that. I just kind of go big picture, this is what they need, and then they kind of add little bits and pieces here or there to make me look smart. So I like, oh yeah, those are guys totally the Riders should draft. Yes. But and now you're obviously a little more removed from it than you used to be, John, so I don't think either of us would sit here and claim to be any kind of profound experts when it comes to the draft.
No, the last... actually, it's funny, though. There are two players drafted that I knew well from my Hilltops days, and I'm thinking this is probably the last year that I'll be able to say that. Which, again, I've been out of the amateur football circuit for a while now, it seems, but you see a couple names pop up, you're like, I remember him taking a dump on the bus once. That's fantastic.
So they were probably in like their first year at that time, and now you've gone through the last of kind of your freshman class, and now it's over. Probably.
Well, again, the thing is too, is being the Hilltops guy, with that weird like amateur football rules where you could play 5 years of junior and then 2 more years of U Sports. There's still a couple guys that are lingering that you could see coming up in a year or two, but in terms of guys that I knew kind of well that were Hilltops veterans, I would say, yeah, we're pretty much at the end of that. Minus one guy for the U of S, one of their running backs, Adam Mackhart, that could get drafted here in the next couple of years. He's really the last guy that I've drank out of a championship trophy with.
Fair enough, and we're also, of course, going to get into the topic we really want to discuss, the league. And they're asked for federal money, and there's kind of been maybe some rumblings about the provinces maybe getting in on this discussion as well. All, of course, having to do with the situation in the world right now and COVID-19 and the coronavirus and the whole thing. And, of course, because of said virus, John and I have been at home a lot. Frankly, I was at home before this whole thing started. It's just kind of continued into it.
That's fair.
John, you took the voluntary layoff from your work for safety. Frankly.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it was a smart decision on your part, but it's kind of freed both of us up with a lot of time to maybe do some things we haven't been able to do so much in our lives as we get to basically play house husband for the last little while, and I have to admit, I've kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, me too. I know your wife is working from home, and my wife is still going into work every day because it's slightly impossible to have a home office. Our house isn't substantially huge, and we don't really have a setup that you could like. The boys' play area is right outside where we would also have the home office, so it just doesn't work out. So, myself, first I got like I got really fat. I was approaching I went through a fairly large weight gain about 18 months ago, and I was approaching pre-weight gain levels, largely from baking bread, breaking donuts, cookies. Like every 2 days, I was making something sweet and just going to town on it. So then I finally wised up, and I've got myself back to my pre-COVID weight, thanks to actually exercising. But no, I've been kicking it with the kids. My oldest has gotten very into Legend of Zelda, so I've now played through Breath of the Wild, Zelda 2. He wanted to watch me throw controllers across the room because that old NES game was impossible. I hated it. Link to the Past, and we are currently nearing the end of Wind Waker. So a lot of baking, a lot of parenting, excessive amounts of drinking.
Well, I mean, that helps gets you to above your pre-COVID weight quite easily.
No, and that I think that applaud on all the sugar, but it's just it's one of those things that. I'm a guy that when the workday ends, I like one or two. Give me one or two drinks. I don't need them. I'm not the kind of guy that's like, oh my God, I'm jonesing for it. I just like it. I like a couple drinks, go home. After I get home, I go to bed. Problem is I found myself, it's as I've been staying up later, 2 has turned into 10 quite easily, and my tolerance is quite high. So the costs associated with that are... yeah, not so good, but thankfully the banks and the daycares are like, hey, don't worry about it. So I have been, and then there's 6 hours of yard work on the weekend. So lots of stuff like that. Outside of that, I have mastered thin crust pizza. So Joel, if you want a great thin crust pizza recipe, give mine a try.
You said you were going to send that to me, and you still haven't. But I'm quite fond personally of my pizza crust, the sourdough pizza crust that I've been making a little bit. It adds a nice crunch to it. It's quite good, I find anyway. And
I've never had a sourdough starter.
I mean that's fair, and I don't want to be that guy that goes on about it. I mean, I've kind of been neglecting it a little bit recently, to be honest with you. But no, it's an interesting. It's kind of fun, kind of a fun thing to have around. I haven't really successfully made a good sourdough loaf with it yet. That's the really hard thing to do with it. The discard where you just kind of make pancakes with it or pizza dough or. I made banana bread with it, which makes the crust on the outside, at least for the first day, in a bit really crunchy. So it's really really good because you're used to banana bread, right? Where it's that really soft exterior. It's good. It's really good. It's banana bread. It's good. I mean, how could it go wrong? Especially when you throw chocolate chips and whatever in it. A little bit, you get the sourdough starter mixed with it, and it just adds this crunch to the outside of it, and it's delicious. We made French toast with it on the weekend. It was
that sounds
it was really
awesome.
good. Yeah. Yeah, and of course the pizza crust. I made flour tortillas myself. I think that was last week. They were, I don't know, all the weeks kind of blend together recently.
Right, exactly. That's the one.
I have trouble remembering. I know I did it at some point. I don't remember exactly, but I know I did something.
Have you had a hard time remembering to put out your garbage and recycling too?
No, because the City of Regina has a great service where you can set up for text alerts on when garbage and recycling day are.
Yeah, City of Saskatoon only has email and a notification, but the problem is the notification, if you don't clear it, it doesn't pop up again.
Okay.
So I've because again, I don't know what day of the week it is most of the time.
I generally have a good idea, but the City of Regina you can set up to either get the email or you can get a text, and I think the text is a lot easier. So I get a text right now every Thursday for garbage and every Wednesday for garbage because Thursday's garbage day, and every second Sunday for recycling. So. Yeah,
I sign up for the email, but the problem is with everybody you've ever been on a mailing list letting you know what they're doing about COVID-19. My inbox, and I'm not one of those guys, but my inbox currently has 555 messages in it.
Whew. Yeah, I am OCD about clearing notifications, so mine never goes above 2.
I used to be, and then I was just getting hammered. So I still when I left media, I primarily used the Gmail account because the people I used to work for were so cheap. The email server would crash all the time, and because of that, people
so that's why your email is what it is. I was wondering why.
Well, that's exactly it.
I'm not going to say what it is, obviously, but
yeah, exactly. So what I did was I used my own Gmail because we would actually regularly get lodged as spam because somebody in the building would check it and be sending out spam messages. SaskTel's like, listen, you guys don't know what the frick you're doing. You're not allowed to email any other customers, right? So a lot of mine, I still get a lot of press releases. Like a lot of people just didn't remove me from the mailing list, which I appreciate, right? Like I didn't have to go and get re-added. So I still get like all your CFL teams. I get your CFL. I get like your CEBL. I get a bunch of that. And I'm just like, hey, it's a handy resource. And then so simultaneously, while getting that in my work email and my personal email, it's all just coming together where it's like, we're doing this for COVID, and we're still open, and we're not open, and hey, you should
our
order
CEO
online.
Cares about you.
Oh my God, if I have to read Trying or Struggling Times one more time, like, oh my goodness. So I just about 3 weeks ago, like my work mail where customers still email me. Now this is the bad one because I've responded to every customer that's emailed me. My work email, my actual like jfraser@oakwoodsnissan.com is up to 21 unread messages. But like I just see the subject. I'm like, I don't need to read that. This is from a lender on new rates, and I am not working.
Yeah. That you shouldn't even be looking at it all, quite frankly.
Technically, I shouldn't. No, you're right. But at the same thing, part of me still doesn't want to be that guy, right? Like, I'm the face of a lot of people. Like, a lot of people want to know what the hell to do with their payments at this time. God knows I've been through it. And it's like, well, I still want to reply. I mean, it's not like I'm sending nudes or anything, but,
Yeah, I mean, I hope you're not. That'd be
really bad. That'd be fireable.
You save that for bombing. You save that for all the Zoom meetings you bomb, right?
Right. Yes. Just go in. Actually, there was one I missed because one of the kids it was Connor, had a diaper that I was supposed to be on a Zoom meeting with our insurance reps and some of my coworkers. And then right before that was about to start, I look and Connor's got that little liquidy brown spot right above his diaper line. And you go, oh no. And he had one of those poops that goes up the diaper and onto the back. Yeah. So,
well, at least you were like smart enough to not bring your computer or whatever device you're using in with you while you did that.
That's fair. Yeah.
Because a lot of people have that moment. You've read the stories that people have that moment where they're like, oh no, I got to go do this, but it's something you really shouldn't be bringing your device in with you.
You should not be pooping with it.
Yeah, like Spencer Hall wrote the piece on Banner Society a while ago about working from home, and he told the story of where he was in a conference call or something of a meeting. He had to run to the bathroom, so he went into the bathroom and he thought he had his phone unmuted. At some point through the time, he had it unmuted. So that was funny.
No, absolutely. That's the last thing, like a Zoom meeting, you need to.
Yeah.
Like I thought about doing that during my like Zoom meeting when I was doing poker last Saturday, or last Friday, I should say. But even that would be a touch offside.
Yeah, maybe that would be kind of funny. Depending on if you did it at the point of the night where we all have had a few, it probably would have been funny.
Yeah.
At least bring it in and just like turn around so they just hear the noise but don't actually see you.
Oh, next poker night I'm doing that.
And just pee, not number 2, obviously.
You never know sometimes. When I get too many vodkas in me, you never know what's going to happen, Joel.
Yeah, and so we're also going to, of course, talk a little bit about the CFL and what's going on in the world of it right now, as usual. But before we get to all that, John, though I know the answer, because you're only buying one thing these days, what's in the glass?
As again, I continue on my... No, what did I buy the other day? No, I made a point. I'm not drinking it right now again because I've cut down on the beer to, again, a lot of that, try to get down to that pre-COVID weight. So I'm still on the Lucky Bastard vodka with the 0-calorie club soda, the 0-calorie Crystal Light mix, and some ice. So that's been my go-to.
You're being pretty basic right now. Is what we're saying.
I'm being super basic. Like I should have Ugg boots. Or what would be, what's like the male equivalent of being a basic bee?
Honestly, I have no idea.
Is it like flat-brimmed hat, collared shirt?
I think that's D-bag. I don't think that's...
Right. What about hockey bro? Like, what does a hockey bro wear these days?
I couldn't tell you.
Like, I could tell, like, this would be a hockey bro drink. Like, that absolutely would be a hockey bro drink. But I did, on Saturday, after doing a ton of yard work, I went and picked up another friend of the program. I was at a liquor store, not my usual one because they're starting to know me too well. Went to a different one, and they had singular cans of Parallel 49's Trash Panda for only $3.25.
Repped by a friend of the show, Michael Torrey.
Absolutely. So I was walking by the single can section with a bottle of vodka in my hand and some lime beer for my wife, and I look and I'm like, holy shit. It's only $3.29 for a tall boy Trash Panda. Hell yeah, get in my belly. I've been doing yard work today, so grab that. So same thing, hazy, hoppy in that same kind of line that I like during the summer. Almost like a New England IPA. I would compare it to Blackbird's New England IPA, and of course the official beer of the Three Down Nation Greencast, the Pile of Bones White IPA. So it was nice, refreshing, great after a hard day of yard work.
Yeah, I've had the Trash Panda a few times. A pretty solid beer. For me, it's a newcomer for me today. Trying the new one of the new ones from Rebellion. It is the Outback Hemp beer.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was curious about that one.
Yeah, so this one is made with hemp from Carrot River, Saskatchewan. They actually went up to Carrot River and launched it up there, which I thought was pretty cool.
That's super cool touch.
Artwork on the can's really cool. It's got like the Northern Lights and some like Saskatchewan type scenery going on. There's like a little bit of a lake and then the farm field, basically, that whole kind of thing going on. And,
right.
And usually on the side of the can it'll say like kind of what the flavor profiles are. There's one that says explore lakes, rivers, and forests, which I thought is kind of cool and fits the theme of the beer. As for itself, it's a beer, and if you like beer, that is beer. This is a beer that's for you, and I'm quite enjoying it as the weather warms up a little bit. So I may pick up a few more of these at one point in time. Could be one that your father-in-law might actually like, because I think it's probably even a little tamer than like the Blast Off or the Lentil or the Cerveza.
Interesting. I will have to definitely give it a try. And win over father-in-law and Lacey, because whenever I can win them over, more craft beer can come into my life.
Yeah, and an easy drinking at 4.5%. So 2 or 3 of them isn't going to leave you too mangled.
It's true, especially not now with how my tolerance has even grown further.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of mangled, the CFL's finances appear that they might be mangled should there be no Canadian football on the field this season. As we all know by now, the report came out from the Canadian press, from Randy Ambrosie himself, that the league could need some money. Well, they need some money now, they say, and could need some more should no games be played. Of course, everyone was caught in the media kind of went into it, and I hate ragging on the media, but they all took the headline of up to $150 million could be necessary for the CFL should there not be any single games played this year.
Well, and the media did a pretty shitty job of just saying CFL needs $150 million. Like, there's a few outlets that didn't do that, but like everywhere I was looking, it seemed like CFL needs $150 million. Oh, by the way, they only need 30 of it right now. Like that. Like, that to me was. I get it. We're all competing for clicks.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's no doubt about that. But there's a lot of strings attached to this. There's a lot of whats and ifs and hows, and this is how it's going to roll out. We don't really know for sure, if at all, at this point. Though Devin Haru was on the Rod Peterson show today, and it sounded like talks are moving in a pretty good direction for that. But yeah, realistically, right now the league has said they need $30 million to stay afloat. Which, I mean, to you and I, that's a lot of money. We could retire if we suddenly had $30 million. You never have to work again. I could float 3 Down Nation for a bit and grow this into something that we really wanted to. But, regardless, in terms of the government and the whole as a country, it's not a ton. And then I found it interesting when we got, it wasn't too long after that, we had heard that the Canadian Premier League was looking for $15 million. Which to me, I'm like, okay, yeah, I could see them being about half of what the CFL is in terms of economic value and revenue and all that at this point. And the CEBL was looking for 5, which probably is fair as well when you consider where they're at in their existence and their popularity and the whole shebang like that. So to me, the numbers all on that and the $30 million line up a little bit. And overall, I get it. I get both sides of this conversation, and it's a dumb stance to take, I know, but realistically speaking, I understand the people out there who say, pro sports it shouldn't be floated, or this, or they should have to repay it, which I don't necessarily disagree with, and the whole thing like that. Like, I get that side of it, but I also see the other side of it, and to me, this is where I fall a little more on it, is the CFL is a business like any other. It is a business that exists to create profit. To a degree, the community teams aren't supposed to hoard too much profit, blah, blah, blah. But for the most part, for the private owners especially, This is a money-making venture. And I know a lot of these guys are rich in the whole thing, but the economics of a league still have to exist to a certain degree. And had this been a scenario where the CFL had shot itself in the foot and did something really dumb and was suddenly bleeding money all over the place and this was all their fault, I'd say, no, tough, figure it out.
Right. But the Riders used to way back in the day.
Exactly. And like the league has done in the past when things have kind of gone sideways for them economically.
Yes.
But in this case, I do believe that the CFL, and frankly, most businesses where their revenue has essentially been dropped to zero because of the COVID situation, had nothing to do with themselves. There's nothing literally they could do about this to continue operating and making any kind of money whatsoever. They deserve some kind of aid. Now, should it be $150 million for the league? I don't know. These talks are ongoing. I'm sure something, it sounds like, is probably going to be figured out. And it probably should for them, for the CPL, for this EBL, and all kinds of businesses across this country.
Right. And I'm with you. I think the misconception is that I think your vocal minority are the people that don't follow CFL football, that don't realize what these guys actually make, that don't realize the economic spin-off, that don't realize the hotels, the meals, the everything that it brings to a community. It's the people that are like, I 110% think that the Canadian government should step up. Because as you said, this is not of the CFL's doing. Basically, the government has told them you cannot have fans in the stands. Now, some people have said, well, the CFL should have diversified. That's fair. They were working on diversifying their global income. And then this hit them like out of nowhere. This came out of nowhere. We couldn't have seen this. I'm sitting here like I do every time we record. I'm watching the replay of last year's Grey Cup game. I don't even think anybody knew what the word COVID was back then, right? You couldn't see this coming. It is not their fault should they have been quicker on maybe picking up other revenue streams? Absolutely.
But what else is there really to pick up? Like, could they have maybe worked the TV deal a little more to get some more money? Perhaps, but it wasn't ever going to reach a point where you were like the NFL and it could save you. The economies of scale are so entirely different to basically every professional league that isn't the Big Four, and you could even argue every professional league that isn't the NFL, quite frankly.
Right, absolutely. And I would argue that like, let's look at this as a whole. There are 3, maybe 4 leagues that I think could justifiably ask the Canadian government for money.
Professional leagues, because there's a whole other ball of wax you're going to open soon with like Major Junior and Junior A and, those sorts of, they're not supposed to be quasi-businesses, but they essentially are. Right?
Well, yeah, essentially. Like, I don't think how any of those, like, I think the CHL and everybody has said, like, we're not going to. Now, the interesting thing to me will be, what will those leagues be asking for?
Yeah.
Like, I know that's coming down the road in terms of amateur leagues and stuff, but I don't think CHL players are going to get their 20 new twigs at the beginning of a season like they're currently doing these days. But I think in terms of pro leagues, I think the CFL is justified for money. It employs, on the field, it employs 50% Canadians, but I mean, like, off of it, there's so many people being affected by this. You're not getting hotel dollars. You're not getting, even little things like the fuel on the planes at the airport. You're not getting that, right? So yeah. I think they're justified in that. I'm with you on the Canadian Premier League. I would even say, the $15 million for the Canadian Premier League is, I'm surprised that it's that low. Only because they are an upstart league and they're new and they don't have really. They've got some traction after one season, but I didn't think they had a ton. So shows that obviously they're managing their finances well. And same with the Canadian Elite Basketball League, right? The CEBL. That's another upstart league. Like, I don't believe in giving a dime to the NHL, to the Toronto Blue Jays. I don't believe giving. No. You've got the revenue there. I am a firm believer in, let's keep these uniquely Canadian things alive. And it's going to be a drop in the bucket compared to what other industries are going to be asking for.
Oh, it's coming. It's coming. There's no question.
Oh, 100% it is. I work in the automotive industry, and I can assure you something's coming. there's going to be an ask at some point this year. If not here, there's going to be one in the States. I'm a big proponent of the oil and gas industry. I think at this time in our history, it is still essential, and I think that it still affects a lot of livelihoods. So I was a fan of them getting $1.5 billion to clean up wells, but yeah, it's just I guess it's your vocal minority that's coming up with this, and I'm 100% give them the $30 million, and then make them open up the books as to why you need up to $150.
Yeah, and I think that's entirely fair. And Randy Ambrosie, at least publicly, has said that that's what they're planning on doing, that they wanted to be fully accountable to the league, and I mean to the government and to the taxpayers and all that. So I think that's fair, and I don't necessarily agree with their the league's quote unquote payback strategy, which is basically free government advertising and we'll send our players to events that you want and that whole thing. I don't think that's significant fair value back. I think there's some kind of formula that can probably be worked out there in terms of this is an interest-free loan and you kind of pay it back as you can, whatever kind of thing, or maybe if you pay back X percentage, we'll forgive the rest or something. There has to be some kind of formula where I think this works out rather than here's $150 million for nothing. Should it all work out essentially? Maybe you work in some contra advertising and that's fine. But I don't think they should just get the money for essentially nothing. I think in terms of something like the CFL, I think there is the ability to at least on some sort of at least about face level pay this back in some kind of real way rather than some niceties.
Oh, okay, hypothetically, and I know this was something I saw a little bit making their own, and this is, I'm sure, exclusive to Saskatchewan. But if next year, when you want to buy a ticket to a CFL game, there was a $2 surcharge on your ticket.
Oh, they've already got like 100 other surcharges on them, so why not?
Right, exactly. I get it. Like CFL teams, as you and I discussed, last week and about they operate basically razor thin, right? Yeah. To me, you add $2 to $5 to a ticket until you've paid back a percentage. The government goes, okay, you're good, because at some point that's happening. Like $5 a ticket, $2 to $5 a ticket is not going to make or break anybody, and that's the easiest solution right there. Like if me as a ticket buying person, if all of a sudden it's like, hey, we got to pay the government back for saving the league, so for the next 3 years your tickets are going to be $2 more per game.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Like, to me, that just that to me it makes sense to pass it on to the consumer. Like, it's the only argument that people have is that, yeah, the money all makes, it's $30 million. If you break it down per Canadian, it's only a couple of bucks. It's not a whole bunch of money. But the argument that people do come up with is, hey, I've never go to a CFL game. I never buy tickets, blah, blah, blah in my life, right? So
there's lots of things the government funds that I don't necessarily like that I still pay. We all pay into still. So, I mean, to me, that argument doesn't really float. So,
right. So, but that is their main argument. That's the hill they're going to
I mean, and the other argument is this is given the time and the ability for those that just hate the CFL to say, no, just let it die.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, the only argument with logic, I should say, is that one. So, I think the CFL would come out and, I know there'd be blowback from fans because the CFL fan base can be a little sensitive at times. But, hey, it's a $2 ticket for the next X years until we pay the feds back. I think to me that just comes out as a good PR move.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, you can go even further if you want to. You can do 50-50s across the league to pay it back too. You could do one of those really big ones that started at Edmonton at like $100,000, and you'd have a good chunk of it paid off.
That's a brilliant idea, Gas. No, seriously though, a season-long 50-50 across the league to pay the government back. I know we're laughing and we're kind of joking about it, but
and we know, especially on the prairies, if you get into, I don't know if they're like Manitoba, but I know in Alberta and Saskatchewan, the 50-50s go nuts. So,
well, they do as well in Manitoba. Yeah. And some places I've been in Ontario. Yeah, that would raise a couple million in a real... I bet you a season-long 50-50 across all CFL stadiums would raise $2 million.
Probably. Easily. Especially if you get really big buy-in from the prairies, yeah, easily.
Right? It's a save our league 50-50. All of a sudden, you're writing a check to the government for $2 million, and somebody's walking home with $2 million. As long as there's nobody chanting to donate it back in the stands that day, then I'm okay with it. If anybody,
I think you would have to.
Off.
You would have to announce that. That would be like if you're ever at Rider games or at some of these games where the jackpot is so massive, they're like, "Oh, we'll announce the winner online tomorrow." That's basically why. Like, there's reasons why they do that, right?
Well, no, absolutely.
So this would have to be, if they actually did this and there was like a $3 million prize at the end, it'd be like, okay, we're going to announce this at like 8 o'clock the night after the Grey Cup on television. Okay, cool.
Right.
Yes.
Do it on SportsCenter or something, and just have like, while one of your anchors is brushing his teeth, combing his hair, hosting the show, and also have him announce the winner of $3 million. Yeah. That seems to be TSN's move these days.
Yeah, so that's a pretty good time, I guess, to transition to the draft. And it happened last week. It was on Thursday. The Riders pretty much did everything we wanted them to do. They drafted an offensive lineman in the first round, a Saskatchewan boy, Milford, Saskatchewan's Matt Riley. So, he follows another in the line of Saskatchewan linemen that have played for the Riders. I don't really have any feelings on the guy one way or the other, as we've talked about before, so we'll have to see where all kind of the players went, but overall, the strategy looked good. They took an offensive lineman, they got a receiver, they got some linebackers, running backs, they did the whole thing where they can help depth-wise and special teams, the whole thing right now, and in the 8th round, with a third last pick in the entire draft, they took a flyer on a guy to the NFL. So, really, to me, it was pretty much, they hit all the right notes, they did everything they had to do, and I can't really say anything more about the Rider draft.
No, that's true. If you want real draft analysis, our friend with the much maligned hat, John Hodge, knows a lot more than us. I gave his... here's the way I graded the Riders draft. I scrolled through, Hodge gave them mostly good grades. I went... okay, they did well. And of course, I'm always a big fan of being from Saskatoon and being around the Husky football program and involved with them and for several years, as we talked about off the top of the show. I am a big fan when you see a local guy get drafted, because especially here in Saskatchewan, that guy dreams of playing for the Riders. If you're playing football and you aspire to be a pro, you probably dream of playing for Saskatchewan. Mm-hmm. And to see them pick a guy that's lived his life wanting to do that. They've had great success with local towns, especially on the offensive line. You and I have seen there's always been good camaraderie amongst those local guys. So I think it's a good get. He's got time to develop. They're not asking him to come in and be the hero.
No.
They're asking him to come and live his dream of being a Rider and slowly get better because they have depth, right?
And hopefully be better than Josiah St. John.
Yeah, that was a great pick. Chris Jones is such a good person at drafting.
They did get Cam Judge under his watch, so there's that. You can't.
Yeah,
but Dakota Shepley. So
yeah, so he got lucky on 2 guys that didn't go to the NFL.
That's kind of what the draft has become, hasn't it?
You're right. That's fair. But and again, the one thing I did notice outside of the terrible broadcast that I also alluded to earlier.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, was the fact that, remember how I had said in our draft preview episode that if teams were going off the board early, that's the indication that we might not have a season. Mm-hmm. Teams were largely picking based on need, and again, the Riders taking a long shot with their last pick. I'm a huge fan of that. I think that's a great idea. But nobody's really taking those early NFL long shots off early. So I think that's a good sign that, we might have CFL football.
Or at least there's no immediate indication that there won't be. I think it's probably a fair way to look at it. If behind the scenes there was they knew it wasn't going to happen, then yeah, the draft probably really goes goofy. If you paid only attention to the CFL.ca draft rankings, it looked goofy. But if you looked at actual rankings done by people that are, legitimately trying to do this, not the CFL.ca ones who are built basically by team scouts, and they're all trying to hide the guys they actually want. So don't pay too much attention to that ranking a whole lot. If you look at Hodges, I believe 7 of the first 12 all went to the first 20. So
yes. Yeah, and if you're watching the Jim Mullen show or following along with Jim Mullen on Countdown U, which I know you don't want to talk about the broadcast yet, but
we can get into it now.
Oh, okay. how on earth do you not use Jim Mullen in your draft day coverage? I know maybe our listeners, they might know Jim Mullen, maybe not as well as you and I do, but Jim, his passion, his life's goal, along with a great businessman here in Saskatoon, Dave Dubé, I've had a beer or two with Dave, great guy, is to basically raise the profile of U Sports football.
Speaking of guys who could float the CFL money if he needed to.
Yeah, right, exactly. Basically, yeah, there's a guy right there. And actually, you know what? While we're speaking of Dave and his money, he's been doing something on his Twitter. He's been donating to food banks and everything across North America every single day since this has started. Like, That's class right there, right? But back to Jim, and if you ever have a chance to converse with Jim, as I have, like, nobody knows U Sports football better than Jim Mullen, and his show is on TSN.
Mm-hmm. To be fair, I guess it's not quite TSN production. They bought the rights, or they have an advertising deal, or whatever the situation is. But Still, he is on your network. And I put it out on Twitter, and someone agreed to him, and then he replied back with the gif of just like a zip, like he wasn't saying anything. Right. So I think deep down inside, he was also like, "Yeah, I agree, but I can't say anything."
Right. Exactly. like most media personalities when they really like. Again, I had a pretty hot take on a certain media personality this week on Twitter, and
we don't.
You know what? Yeah. Publicly, there wasn't a ton of people saying, "Yeah, you're right." Privately, there's a lot of people saying, "Yeah, you're right."
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, how on earth do you not utilize Jim? I don't understand. Like,
especially given the product that we saw. Like, if they had like 4 legitimate experts that were at his level, sure.
Well, let's say had they used Dunk.
Which they did one year when they broadcasted rounds 3 through 7 on TSN.ca. The one year they actually brought Dunk in, and he did those rounds.
Exactly. I'm not saying that Dunk is smarter than Jim or Jim is smarter than Dunk, but like, if you had somebody who actually knew what the F they were talking about on there,
other than Dwayne Ford, who was the savior of that entire broadcast,
100%. But to me, to be a draft, you need draft. Look at the NFL, and I get it. You're not going to have 6 guys that follow U Sports football and the NCAA here in Canada, but that NFL draft had 4 or 5 guys that knew everything about every single pick that these teams were making.
The NFL draft coverage was littered with guys from College Game Day. There wasn't a whole lot of guys. Booger was there for some reason, but I think he was filling at the last minute for someone who fell ill. But otherwise, it was filled on ESPN and on ABC's, because they did 2 separate broadcasts on each network, littered with guys from College Game Day, not Monday Night Football or ESPN Countdown.
Right, exactly. And let's just be thankful that Dwayne Ford hasn't been that busy in the legal department that he's been able to actually watch some U Sports games and really bring that level of coverage up, because it was not good. It was not good on any level. Like,
it wasn't, and even like the analysis might have gotten better at some point. I don't know. I just zoned out and was not paying a whole lot of attention to it. And I think the real telltale of basically how boring this broadcast was came from my wife. Because the week before, she had sat beside me, because the way our house is set up, we basically have one TV with the cable box. Right. She was doing a little bit of work or whatever on the side, but she was kind of half paying attention to what was going on with the NFL draft. Not that she knew anything was going on. She didn't really know anything about it, but she enjoyed the broadcast as a whole, and she enjoyed when they showed the shots of the GM with his family in their home and the whole thing like that. Like, she actually liked that. As someone who knows nothing about the NFL, let alone college football, and who these guys are and who's being taken, she enjoyed the quality of the broadcast, and she fell asleep during the CFL draft.
The CFL draft just seemed like long. Well, and two, let's face it, your guys' favorite moments, you're both dog people, was definitely when Bill Belichick's dog was on the camera.
It was among them. Yeah.
Of course. You're right. The CFL draft just seemed like one long, rambling, monotonous, like asking Farhan, asking any broadcaster to host and announce the picks, and it just especially
what was the commish doing that he was so busy that he couldn't take a minute every 10 minutes to announce a name?
Drinking a beer with JT? I don't know.
Put that on. I don't care.
Right? Exactly.
Liven the whole thing up.
Exactly. Just crushing beers to Justin Trudeau, negotiating your $150 million line of credit, and boom, away you go. You're right. It was just, and especially too, like, it's not like there's a ton of tape on these guys. You don't have game highlights ready to go for every single one of these. So it was like
especially the guys in like lower level NCAA.
100%. Like to me, that would have made okay radio.
Yeah.
What they did, but in terms of TV, like, if you're TSN for whatever asinine reason, and again, why is Farhan announcing the picks? You could have, like, we're in the deadest time in known history, and everybody's appetite for pro sports has never been hungry, I would argue.
Which we saw that, like, the ratings proved that they were up 116%. They did about 400,000 viewers total. The average was about 78. I argue that average probably could have been higher had the broadcast been more interesting to watch.
No, 100%. Or like, this is your chance to get a little exposure on Sportsnet, right? You have Ambrosi, like, hey, CFL Draft was last night. Here's your first round, right? Mm-hmm. If you have Ambrosi making those picks, or anybody.
We've made this argument about the CFL Draft forever, is that it is such a CFL on TSN production that any other outlet that uses video as their primary medium isn't going to pick it up. Because Randy Ambrosi previously used to be standing in the TSN studio announcing the pick. So there would never be on another network, even on Global News at night, you would rarely ever see, there wouldn't be the clip of the commission walking out and saying, and with the first overall pick in the CFL Draft, the BC Lions select Jordan Williams.
Right, exactly. And on top of it all, like, I don't understand, like, okay, if you are TSN, you've made the decision that this is our product, this is our production, we're going to make this a thing. This is our thing.
Yeah.
And you've made that decision. Like, how on earth do you not get another TSN personality to just announce the picks, to just give you that break?
Yeah.
Rather than the four.
I caught myself, like, I would be watching Twitter, I'd be paying attention to other things going on, and all of a sudden they would be talking about a different pick, and I was like, whoa, what happened? Because you're right, there wasn't that moment where, I mean, a draft is a draft, and there isn't enough going on all the time where you're constantly always paying attention, but there's usually that moment where you know when to watch. And the NFL is very good at this. When their draft will be, you'll hear like the bam-ba-da-bam-ba-da-bam-ba-da-bam. You'd hear the music saying the pick is in, and you look up, and then all of a sudden the commissioner is there announcing the pick. Or even if it was all this one thing, and all of a sudden it was over.
Put it this way. As somebody that's been involved intimately with the National Lacrosse League, when the National Lacrosse League does something better than you, you have severely dropped the ball.
Yeah.
The National Lacrosse League has the commissioner announce the pick.
Yeah.
Like, the most, like, dysfunctional, disorganized league office you'll see in your life. You know that drawer where you just put, like, random junk in it, like pens and matches and Chinese takeout flyers? That is more organized than the National Lacrosse League's head office. And yet they can put on a better draft production than the CFL. Like, somebody's got to pull their head out of their ass. I mean, this was your great chance to make it something, and you didn't, and you're probably never going to, because this was your chance.
And I've seen the arguments of, they don't really want to spend the money right now, and I get that, but this wouldn't have been expensive to do. This is an unprecedented time in broadcasting where no one gives a crap if your quality is actually good or not. Everyone is quite understanding right now. You are seeing all kinds of programming, live or otherwise, that is being shot with webcams right now when no one gives a crap. So, you know what? Yeah, it's pretty easy, and I have a feeling there might even be some CFL paranoia that played into this. CFL, football ops, head office kind of paranoia. Just put a camera every team has some extra device lying around where they could set up a camera in front of John Hufnagel and you can show a shot of him. The mics don't have to be on. I don't care. They weren't on with the NFL broadcast. Just show some different things going on instead of just these four talking heads in some YouTube video for 2 hours.
Show a Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
Like, have some of these guys in a Zoom meeting that you can cut to. Like, I mean, if I could play poker on a Friday night with buddies in Ontario and Alberta and BC and, like, and the picture quality is great. How on earth can you not do this with a couple of coaches? Like, it's actually like, it's funny. Like, a lot of people rag on the CFL for being embarrassing. This is the most embarrassed I think the CFL has been in a very long time. It looked cheap. It looked stupid. They dropped the ball, and just like, it was a wasted opportunity for the CFL.
Yeah, and that's I mean, it kind of goes back to the piece I wrote a while ago about suggestions for what the CFL and TSN can be doing better, and this felt like another scenario where they just kind of half-assed it, because that's kind of what they've been doing for a while. And this could have been an opportunity to really ramp it up and make this feel bigger than it was, like so many other sports leagues do so well. Instead, it made the CFL draft feel smaller than it actually is.
No, and you're absolutely right. Like even when the commissioner was in the studio, it felt small.
Yeah.
But they somehow made it feel like even smaller. Which, again, during the era of COVID-19, like that is not what you should be doing at all. Like, you should be grasping opportunities, and here they didn't.
Save on O'Reilly Brake Parts Cleaner. Get 2 cans of O'Reilly Brake Parts Cleaner for just $8. Valid in-store only at O'Reilly Auto Parts.